Alas, another bullet journal has come to an end and a new one has begun. I always find a lot of satisfaction and pride when I fill up a whole journal. But I also find starting a new journal is equally as satisfying. It's something about the anticipation of filling all those empty pages with your own personal mark that just makes me really excited. The journal I just finished had a watercolor cover with a quote saying, "Create the life you love." It has 190 unnumbered pages, a pocket in the back, one bookmark, and is by a company called Peter Popper Press. The journal I'm starting today is a Leuchtturm 1917 dotted notebook in this forest green color. It has 251 numbered pages, a pocket in the back, 2 bookmarks, and a pre-made index. And I just stuck a pretty sticker on the cover to give it some character. I really like these journals, mostly because of the way they're made. If there's one thing I would change in a Leuchtturm, it would be the page thickness. I find these pages get a little bit see-through, and you really have to test your pens before using them to make sure that they don't bleed. But being an experienced bullet journaler myself, I already have my arsenal of good pens and whatnot that I know how to use and I know will work with this journal, so I'm not worried. All of the supplies I use in this video will be linked in the description, so don't worry on that note. When setting up a new journal, my first order of business is always to make an identification page. In the past, I've always written out "this journal belongs to" and then my name. But I was watching some bullet journal YouTube videos the other day when I saw someone write their name and then journal, and I really liked that concept. So using that idea, I used my alphabet stamps to write out Annabeth's journal, and then just drew some fast sketchy circles around it and filled it in with various green colors to match the cover and some golden sparkles. Just because of that one page, my whole theme for the month was decided, and that will be a greenish, planty, sparkles kind of feel, and I am quite satisfied with that. After that, I skipped the index page at first because I don't actually have anything in the content of the pages yet, so I went to set up my key. I had no idea where I was going with this, besides knowing that I wanted to incorporate the dimensions of the page. So I counted the boxes and made a couple lines splitting up the page into maybe 2 or 3 sections and wrote out the dimensions of how many squares are in between there for each of them. Then I just wrote out "key" in a big font and the 4 different bullets that I use in my bullet journal before decorating the page a little with golden sparkles and whatnot. Next up is my yearly calendar, but since I'm setting this particular journal up in September, I only need to add September to December for now. What I did was write out the calendar for each month across the top, then the numbers for all the days in a line below. I highlighted weekends and then filled out any important events that were happening on those days, like birthdays and whatnot. As I said before, I was watching a bunch of bullet journal YouTube videos the other day, so I attempted a couple pages that I haven't tried yet. The first idea was a future goals page. All I did for that was think of a couple goals I might have for the future, far or close, but typically anything that would take longer than 1 month to complete. It's a little bit like New Year's resolutions, but I like this better because it feels more structured and attainable. The next new thing I tried was a monthly accomplishments page. Essentially, at the end of each month, you just write out one thing that you were really proud of. Maybe something that you accomplished, or just something you did, like go on a trip. I added 2 lines per month, and I started with August 2020 because I had the space for it, and I ended it with December 2021. Then there's a spread I'm really excited about, my flying log. I am about to graduate college with no idea what I want to do with my life. So after some thinking, I've decided that I want to try and become a pilot. I'm actually scheduled to fly my first plane very soon, and I'm so excited about that. As I'm working towards getting my private pilot's license, the idea is to log every time I actually fly the plane. I'll write the date, then the model of the plane I flew, the length of the flight, where I went, and an interesting thing that I saw, learned, liked, etc. I'm just really excited about this whole thing, and I want to make sure that I remember it all. Next up is my mandatory book page. Unlike my book pages in the past, I actually only filled up my paper bookshelves with the amount of books I have for my Goodreads Readings Challenge. No more, no less. For 2020, the goal was 20, and currently I have read 12, which means I have 8 blank spots left over. Underneath that, I tried something else I got inspired by: top books to read. So I drew 15 rectangles and filled a few of them in with titles of some of the books that are on the top of my list to read. In the past couple months, during quarantine, I've also gotten really interested in the whole pen paling community. So to keep track of the letters that I started, I made a snail mail log. The columns that I wrote out are the date, then the person I sent the letter to or received it from, the country they reside in, then just a check mark in one or the other column to see if it was a received or a sent letter. And the last column is the theme of each letter for inspiration and also to make sure that I don't repeat things. Then something that I've pretty much copied over to each bullet journal since I've started is my Leo list. My Leo list is really just a list of all of Leonardo DiCaprio's films in order of release. I've been trying to complete this list for actual years now, and I'm only in 2008. But it's okay. I'm more than halfway through, and I just watched another one the other day, which is good. Next to my Leo list is actually a list of all of the Barbie movies in existence. Don't question it, I grew up with Barbie, I really love it, and me and one of my best friends just want to watch all of them because that's just something we're interested in cosplaying. Also because we can. Why not? After that, I started to attempt something called a Commonplace Book. Except to start, I'm just gonna make it a commonplace page. Jordan Clark published a video all about commonplace books and convinced me to give it a go. I'm not going to be able to explain it properly, so the video is linked down below, and I actually find it super interesting, so I suggest you go give that a look. And at last, we have finished my bullet journal setup, and now we have reached September. I always make an intro page for my months, and this time I just stuck with the theme I've been working with so far and made a pretty viney S before stamping out September with my alphabet stamps. Then we just have the basic pages that I do every month, starting with my gratitude log. Then my sleep log. And my habit tracker. Then, because school has just started, I just copied down my schedule for the semester and I made myself a homework calendar for the month, just to keep track of everything in one spot because I don't actually have an agenda since we're not going to school this semester. Everything's online. Then also, to add a little bit of spice to it, I also added a couple lines for a school time playlist to sort of hype me up, get me in a good mood, let me study properly. Another thing that I do every month is just a calendar. I like having a double page spread for this so that it can make every day of the month a 6x6 square and actually have space inside to fill out the things that are happening that day. So I'll write things like when my classes are, or when I'm working, or even just events that are happening day to day, and I highlight each of them in a different color based on category. And finally, my weeklies. I tried 2 different methods of organizing my weeklies this month, one with 2 horizontal boxes per page, and then another with 2 vertical boxes per page. I ended up actually liking both methods, so I just did the 2 alternating throughout the month. I did most of it off of camera though because it took a lot of time and it was so repetitive, I highly doubt that would have even been interesting. But the basic concept of one day though is just a box, and the lines of the box are vines so it still fits the theme of the rest of my journal. And then there's the day of the week and the date we are. Then I have an hourly chart so that I can block off big chunks of my day, like when I have work or when I have class. And the rest of the box is ready to be filled in with anything I have to do that day. And yes, that is the lengthy explanation to my new bullet journal and September 2020 setup. I had a lot of fun setting this up, and I know it looks pretty decorated and complicated, but I just want to note that bullet journals don't have to look fancy to be valid. Everyone has a different bullet journaling method, and nobody's forcing you to do it any one way. If you want to do super fancy spreads that are even fancier than mine and more artsy than mine, go for it. If you just want to do a couple little doodles here and there, sort of like what I do, even though this time was a little bit more complicated than usual, then go for it. If you just want to do a simple spread with no decoration whatsoever, then that's fine too. I've been there, I've tried a bunch of different methods, and they all work. Either way, I just hope this inspired you to maybe pick up your journal and give it a little bit more effort this time. After all, we are gonna have to have a little bit of spice added to our beginning of the school year since everything will be online. Until next time, XO Annabeth.